Nishmas Rochel Bas Nosan Nota. Chazal say that the Malochim wanted to sing Shira, and the Rebbeinu Shalom prevented them from reciting Shira, song, praise, at the moment that the Mitzrim were being drowned. They were told, Maise Yodai Toivim B'Yam, handiwork of the Rebbeinu Shalom, men, people created by the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Mitzrim, are now being killed. It's not a moment to say Shira. On the other hand, we do find that Shibchu Gulim Alayam, Klal Yisrael did sing Shira at the Yam. The Tzlach also asks that we're taught that David HaMelech sang Shira at every phase of his existence, including his death. So it seems that there's a contradiction here, that on the one hand, the Malochim are prevented from singing Shira. On the other hand, the Klal Yisrael, David HaMelech, do sing Shira. Beis HaLevi points out that the Shira, why did Klal Yisrael wait till the moment of Kriyas Yam Suf? There was quite sufficient evidence. There were many miracles that took place before they got to the Yam Suf. The Makkos, the Rebbeinu Shalom was wreaking havoc with nature, turning everything inside out, upside down. Why did they wait? Probably the simplest understanding of that is that was the moment of closure. That was the moment of the completing the total series of events that would lead to their emancipation and lead to their getting out of Mitzrayim. But they didn't, in fact, believe it until they saw the Mitzrayim being destroyed. Kaitzer Ruach, that initially they didn't believe Moshe Rabbeinu, Ibn Ezra and others indicate that it was inconceivable to them, given the mentality of having been children of children of children of slaves for so many years. Having spent such a block of time, they couldn't imagine breaking out of that box, going beyond that. So when they in fact saw the evidence in front of them, then that was another dimension. Beis HaLevi says that Shira is something which is a comprehensive package. It's the total picture. One could have been in a situation of stress, pain, of deprivation, and then one escapes it. But there's not a necessary relationship between what you suffered and your subsequent freedom. There are times, though, that you reach a point in the solution to the problem that you recognize that everything that you suffered up till that point was necessary to get to this solution. That's all the difference. If it merely is a cessation of the pressure, of the stress, or is it now a comprehensive picture that totally I understand, I see in retrospect that everything that I suffered till now was necessary in order to get to where I had to be. That's Schiller, says the Beis Halevi. They came to a point now where they understood why they had to live through Mitzrayim, why they had to live through this period, why they had to suffer it through. It was an expiation, obviously, of sins. It was attaining to atonement, but the particular manner and the sequence of events had to follow this chain. The Yetzias Mitzrayim, our emphasis, the Meshech Chochmah says, is on the salvation of Klal Yisrael, not on the savoring the revenge. The point of us witnessing the death of the Mitzrim was to have that closure, to know that, okay, now this chapter is finished. They didn't have yet the fullest confidence because of the limitations of their ability to imagine it, to see it. Meshech Chochmah points out that this is emphasized in the fact that the seventh day of Kriyas Yamsuf of Pesach, the seventh day of Pesach, is designated as a Yontif even before the Mitzrim are killed, before we go out. It's a salvation that we're going to. It's part of a national holiday which is going to be the climax of our event. So we anticipate it in advance. Posuk in Mishlei says, "B'nefol lo yifcha al tismach." Don't rejoice with the failure, the falling of your enemy. But there does seem to be a contradictory verse. It says, "Ba'avodu b'shoim rina," when the disappearance of evildoers from the world, there's song in the world. The diak would seem to be, I think also that, I believe that the Sfas Emes does say this also, but I think the diak is straightforward. It says, "B'nefol o yivcha," if it's your enemy, you're taking it in the possessive. You have a personal stake in it, and then you're subjectivizing it to I want to see that revenge. Or is it b'avoid l'shoyim? It's an objective fact. It's a statement that the world does better without evil. When there's less evil in the world thrives. There is more of the flow from spirituality to the material, and the material then is a resource, is a platform for continuing growth of spirituality, for expressing it, for delivering it to its, getting it from its source and delivering it to where it has to go. So, coming back to our question, the Malachim are prevented. from saying Shira. Human beings are allowed to say Shira with criteria. It has to be Shira that recognizes that it's not, I'm not rejoicing in the death of the Mitzrayim, I'm rejoicing in my salvation. If it was necessary for the Mitzrayim to be annihilated, then that was a price that had to be paid. Rebbeinu Shalom creates a world, and the Chinuch teaches us that part of the sensitivity not to waste anything in the world that a tzaddik has, says on the mitzvah, the prohibition not to waste baltashas. You don't destroy something randomly, arbitrarily. That there's a world the Rebbeinu Shalom has created with resources, and they should be gathered, collected, organized in a manner that they are contributing each to fulfill its space and place in the universe, and that is the ideal, when all the pieces of the puzzle contribute to each other. Klal Yisrael, true, has a leading role, a leadership role. Didn't necessarily have to seem to be that way when the get-go, when Odom Arishon was all mankind. But once Odom is failing, there's going to have to be an Avram. Somebody's going to have to pick it up and run with the ball. And the leadership then will be Klal Yisrael, and Klal Yisrael are equipped. They have a mission for the world to bring about Tikkun Olam. But Klal Yisrael's Tikkun Olam is going to be through the manner in which the Rebbeinu Shalom designed Tikkun Olam, Klal Yisrael, the world. It's not arbitrarily what I am going to choose or what seems to suit me or please me at any given point. But since Klal Yisrael is equipped with another dimension, there's an urgency that they will have to express this mission that they are carrying now to the climax of history. Coming week's Parsha, the Malbim points out that the Rambam reckons Anochi Hashem Elokecha is one of Taryag mitzvahs. One of the 613 mitzvahs is I am your God. It's a statement. There's no commandment to do something or not do something. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. But the Rambam reckons it as one of 613 mitzvahs. In the Yad HaChazoka, he says, Leida, to know that there's a Rebbeinu Shalom. In the Sefer HaMitzvahs, he says, Lahamin, to believe. Come back to that in a moment. But Kreskas and others challenge the Rambam and say that you cannot, it doesn't work logically, that unless there's a commander, there can't be a commandment. So you must posit that there's a Rebbeinu Shalom before you say that there's a mitzvah to know that there's a Rebbeinu Shalom, to believe that there's a Rebbeinu Shalom. If you posit it first, then you fulfilled the mitzvah before you got to the mitzvah. the Malbim takes up on behalf of the Rambam. And the Malbim says that there are two stages in human cognition, knowledge, understanding, awareness. Stage one is intuitive. The Ribboni Shloim implants in the unconscious of man certain a priori truths. Straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points. It's a fact that we recognize. I don't have to prove it. I sense it. I don't need experience to make that happen. Certain things I need experience in order to be persuaded. One of the things I shouldn't need experience, I don't need experience, essentially, says the Malbim, is the recognition that there is an absolute truth which is rooted in the absolute, in a Ribboni Shloim. There is a Ribboni Shloim. We sense that there's some ultimate reality, truth about our sojourn on this planet. We're here for a reason. It's too well organized, too well, as Avram said, Yesh Odin Labirazu. There is a master, a designer for this palace that he found in the middle of nowhere. Is it theoretically possible? Not, yes. But that's not the way we normally think. And when you think selectively, and the selective thinking is serving your own desires and unconscious appetites and conscious appetites, you should at least hold yourself suspect that the reason you're choosing the appetite A over B, beware, then maybe it's because of your subjective bias. Probably. So the Malbim says that the Ribboni Shloim is implanted in human consciousness the recognition that there is a Ribboni Shloim. I am a creature created by a creator, the master creator, and there's such a fascinating interplay, interfacing between myself and everything else that exists. There are resources here. And the Jew has now been charged with a mission to lead, to be a Golani Corps, to be a commando corps, an intellectual, spiritual commando corps in history, to lead the charge for Tikkun Olam. Is it for the benefit of all mankind? Yes. But it has to go this route. We've used the analogy over the years of two people who decide they want to engage in Tikkun Olam. One goes down to a place where there are alcoholics gather, matchstick men. He finds these people and props them up against the wall, the lamppost, and he keeps falling down if he walks away, so he has to stay there the whole day. So they have a day shift and a night shift, and they spend 12 hours taking care. That's admirable. Definitely an act of selfless giving to another. And then there's another person that locks himself in his garret, in his room, and he develops his own talents, intellectually, scientifically, culturally, and after 20 years he comes out and says, okay, mankind, now exploit me. I think most of us would make the case that the second kind of person has made more breakthroughs for the changing and developing of the sensitivities, life, health, mind, heart of man than the first. Is the first doing something good? Yes. But it's very limited, very myopic. It's very focused to a very specific, particular, limited contribution. Whereas the second kind of person, though in the initial period of gestation, is developing, and when he succeeds, if he succeeds, when he succeeds more, less, will impact mankind history in a deeper fashion. Jews are the second kind. They're a Mamleches Kohanim, a nation of priests. Let's read artists, scientists, mathematicians for priests. They've been endowed with certain abilities, potential. Do they have free will? Yes. Can it go awry? Yes. Can it be counterproductive? Yes. But by and large, there's an extraordinary overrepresentation of Jews having impacted the world. Is that just a peculiarity? Could be. But it's not just as Yechidim, it's as a nation, changing the thinking of the world. Tikkun Olam. Mentioned yesterday that we say in davening that we ask the Rebbeinu Shem B'Hoser Soten, take the Soten away from me, Milefanenu mi'acharenu, from in front of us and in back of us. Everybody knows the Chazal teach that Ein Odom Chayta, a man doesn't sin unless nichnas by ruach shtus. A moment of aberration. That's before. The moment of the shtus is there. The aberration is somehow insinuated itself into his mindset and therefore will lead to the behavior which is undesirable. What does it mean, acharenu, afterwards? So I would submit that ein odom chayta. Chayta is also a lotion of missing. It means sin, but it also means something is missing, lacking. Batsheva uses the lotion that chatoim will be lacking when she's complaining about the malchus, the royalty being taken from its rightful heir, Shlomo. So chato, chet is lacking, missing. So ein odom chayta, man doesn't create what? A vacuum. He doesn't create an empty space. Ela nichnas by ruach shtus. Then some ideology has to fill that space, because deep in his mindset, in his heart, in his imagination, in his unconscious, is a sense of godliness. But he doesn't want to pay the price of godliness. Paying the price of godliness means we're playing the game of life on the Rebbeinu Shalom's court. If it's his court, you play with his rules. But I can't escape the inner feeling that was built into my neshama, to my soul, that there is a plan, a purpose. a scheme for it all, and I can access it. So what do? I'm caught in a battle zone. What man does is he ingeniously reinvents God in the image of man instead of making peace, being merely a man created in the image of God. And so now he thinks he can have the best of both. He's satisfying the hunger, the spiritual, intellectual hunger for some overarching purpose, significance to his existence. But he wants to design the playing field according to his needs, desires, requirements. That's ein odem chayta. Man doesn't create an empty space. The space doesn't go away. It has to be filled. What? Shtus. Shtus is nonsense. Shtus is aberration. The Bell Schwartzman Zatzal used to say, Shtus is the Loshen Shita, a thesis, an ideology. People spin off ideologies that are man-made, invented, and treat them as if they were absolutes. That's what the Rambam means. The Rambam means, yes, Anochi Hashem Elokecha is given as a flat-out statement. There's no tzivui, no commandment. It's a statement. What's the mitzvah? Leida, to know. You have to use your mind. What? Take a look at the world. Take a look at history. Take a look at yourself. Where do the probabilities seem to line up? Of course, there has to be some movement from probability to conviction. When I daven, I don't daven to a probability, I daven to a conviction. How do I make that climb from probability to transition, to conviction? That's what we're doing here in this room. Every time we open a Gemara, every time we climb into another svara, and we use the kalim, the tools of the limitations of man to touch infinity, to touch Ein Sofiyut, we have broken through. That's the noise level you hear in the Beis Medrash. We're crashing the sound barrier. We're going beyond the limitations. We're using gray matter, nerves, tongues, lips to touch, to merge with the Ein Sofiyut. We're connecting back to Sinai. We are then once again standing with Klal Yisrael on Har Sinai. Chazal say, it'd be impossible to say such a thing, but we're told, the Psukim teach us, Gemara and Brachos, that Hashem HaMilchot, the Rebbeinu Shalom, set us separately, made us a definitive, particular entity, Klal Yisrael, HaMilchot, set you aside, designated you. And we also designate the Rebbeinu Shalom, as it were. What does that mean? Rebbeinu Shalom is beyond any limitations, but in the tefillin of the Rebbeinu Shalom, which we can say the words just get an part of the message of the analogy. It says, Mika Amcha Yisrael, who are like the Jewish people. We're being taught something here that we identify the Rebbeinu Shalom as the Rebbeinu Shalom who took us out of Mitzrayim. The Kuzari already engages that question. Why not the Rebbeinu Shalom who created the world? Because this is now going to be the reaffirmation that he created the world, that he can turn Teva, nature, inside out with Yetzias Mitzrayim. How do I know it happened? I have edus. I have witnesses. What are my witnesses? My witnesses are that the claim per se is such an outrageous, audacious claim that it has never been made by any other people in history, that an entire nation bore witness to the historic events that brought it about. A few people here, a few people there, they had credibility, they were good salesmen, but an entire nation, and it's predicted that no nation would ever make such a claim. Only Klal Yisrael. We were going into business tomorrow to start a religion. Isn't that a better claim? Why not make it? How come nobody else made it? The answer is you can't get it started. That's edus. Because as soon as you start, wait a minute. My sister-in-law wasn't there. My neighbor wasn't there. No, everybody was there. As soon as you say everybody, you're stuck. That's edus. The fact that that claim has been sustained. But then the Rebbeinu Shalom gives us another handle. His tefillin, kavayochel, as it were, mi kamcha Yisrael. Jews are going to remain unique. Nothing like them in history. Passionate, obsessed with tikkun olam. Qualitatively and quantitatively off the charts, way beyond anybody else. Why? Purely reactive, as a way of compensating for AntiSemitism, inferiority. Others say that's the cause. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't hang together. And so, it's a prediction. Like the Meshech Chochmah says, on v'ahavta l'reyacha kamocha, you should love your fellow Jew like yourself. It's not neighbor, as frequently translated. V'ahavta l'reyacha is a nevuah, it's a prophecy. Jews will continue to treat their fellow Jews as family. They're linked together to a destiny that cannot be broken. It'll happen this way, it'll happen that way, longer, slower, but it's going to happen. And that's why, as we've said so often, Rabbi Simcha sees it, that Jews in Golus, Buenos Aires, Baghdad, and Brooklyn, and they have a deeper sense. They don't share language, they don't share common experiences already for a few generations, and yet They have a sense of a common destiny to the extent that it requires them to support, help, aid, give of themselves to the other. Mika Amcho Yisrael, the Rebbeinu Shalom's tefillin. Prediction. You will continue to love your fellow Jew as yourself. It's going to break all of the norms that govern all other peoples. Again, improbabilities. Can I dive into the probability that this improbability happened? I can dive into conviction. But the improbability of such a scenario, a denouement, an unraveling of history having occurred, even if it hadn't been predicted, obligates me to look at the sources. Why is this happening? Why has it happened? Why is it so recurring? Why is it so consistent, persistent? It doesn't go away. Jews come back to their homeland, a few thousand years of being separated. The charge is led by secular Jews to put the pieces of the puzzle together in the modern era. The connection to Eretz Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Teres Yisrael, was kept alive by the devotion of small numbers of Jews that were here all the way through Talmidim of the Gur, and before the Talmidim of the Ramban, and before. And many people had idealistic convictions, selfless, help solve Am Yisrael's issues, challenges, problems, the suffering under the Tsar, the communists. But then so many of those Jews founded communist communes here in Eretz Yisrael. Pictures of Stalin. It was a major machlekes in the communist community of kibbutzim here in Eretz Yisrael, pro-Stalin, anti-Stalin, even after all the exposés of his evil. Shocking. But how many years ago was that? Hard to believe. Chazal say that Odom Reitze bekav shaloi metisha kavim shel chaverei. Socialism doesn't work. Communism doesn't work. Motivation means that I can express myself and I can reach to maximize my potential, to activate my resources. That's the greatest satisfaction, and that's what makes the world go round. Dor HaFloga, according to the Abarbanel, had already tried that, and it didn't work. Jews, ideologies, spinning off systems. Ein odem chayte, ele nichnas by ruach shtus. He creates a vacuum that has to be internalized. He has to justify it. Every time we're plugging in to today's Daf Gemara, giving us the kelim to deal, the resources, the ability to be able to participate in the ongoing discussion, in the selection of who the Gedolim are, the giants, the poskim of our generation. Only by attaining to a level of sophistication and discernment can we make such judgments. And that's what's happening. And that's what this is all about. Initially, I remember hearing it when I first came to Eretz Yisrael. It was all over. No more problem of the ghetto Jew. No more problem of anti-Semitism. Jews had established a nation. We were flexing our muscles. We're being respected. We have dignity. Where are we at today? It happened initially, that sense of hubris after the War of Independence, after the Six-Day War. The wind was blown out of the sails after the 73 War, and then the Gulf Wars. Still at war. Have people given self-sacrifice? Yes. And as our Rabbeim have taught us, anybody that has sacrificed for Klal Yisrael, the Rebbeinu Shalom, in the cosmic auditing in the sky, records it. But Tikkun Ha'olam, to come about with continuity, substance, Haredi community in Eretz Yisrael under attack. It would seem to be, in many instances, a secular version of anti-Semitism. Since the motivation of the secular Jew is to be like the Goyim, this is one way he can be anti-Semitic, is to be anti-Haredi. Are we always exemplary? No. But we are extraordinary. Because we forfeit the ordinary for the sake of the extraordinary, of reaching, touching to the Ova, to the past, and reaching for the future. And that's the only way it will work. And it's growing, b'li anha. The Rebbeinu Shalom should give us as we stand here right now, a Jew socialist candidate for America. Who would have believed it? Who would have believed that children of selfless, dedicated, really, really committed kibbutzniks would reject the state Gaon Yerida. From that community, there did come even collaborators with Arabs. Never happened, lo aleinu, from the Haredi world. Because that which is man-made only has a limited warranty. The ultimate guarantee is Omar Abaya, Omar Rova, Omar Ravina. May the Rebbeinu Shem give us all the schus to plumb the depths of Torah and reconnect our neshamas and so many more of our brethren.